Here's the brief news from the world over this week. Russia is solidifying its foothold in Crimea after its residents overwhelmingly voted on Sunday to be incorporated into Russia. Following Russian President Vladimir Putin's annexation of Crimea in a signing ceremony, Russian forces seized military installations across the disputed Crimean Peninsula on Wednesday. They faced no resistance. The United States and the European Union are threatening tougher sanctions in response. This comes after leveling some modest sanctions against Moscow, targeting Russian and Crimean officials with asset freezes and visa bans. Tens of thousands of Russian-led troops are now patrolling Crimea. Ukraine's government announced that it is drawing up plans to pull troops from Crimea, but it will defend its borders. Ukraine will soon begin holding joint military exercises with the U.S. and Britain. More about the crisis in Crimea in our next segment. And there are new reports of Christian persecution by Muslims in Syria. According to the Melkite Greek Catholic Archbishop of Homs, Islamic law has been established in rebel-controlled areas of northern Syria. Patriarch Jean Abdo Arbak told Aid to the Church in Need of alarming news coming from the region. He says all publicly visible Christian symbols are being destroyed, and a new jizya assessment has been imposed. That's the Sharia tax leveled against non-believers. Additionally, churches and monasteries destroyed or damaged in the civil war are not being rebuilt. The Patriarch said Christians are living in fear, but don't want to leave their homeland. And Muslim and Christian leaders of the Central African Republic are pleading for the UN Security Council to expedite its deployment of peacekeepers to the region. Unprecedented sectarian violence has ripped the nation apart for more than a year. In a joint statement, these groups warned of genocidal war. Violence started in December of 2012 when Muslim rebels began to terrorize Christian villagers. Soon after, a retaliatory group took up arms and targeted Muslims. A humanitarian crisis is now growing, and nearly 1 million people have been displaced due to the violence. And a church leader in southern Sudan is reporting that much of his diocese has been completely destroyed as fighting between rebels and the government continues there. Bishop Roko Taban, the apostolic administrator of the Malakal diocese, told Aid to the Church in Need that thousands of people have abandoned their homes to escape a new rebel offensive. As many as 900,000 people have been displaced, and a humanitarian crisis has emerged. The UN has warned that the government of South Sudan is in danger of collapse. Cardinal Peter Turkson, head of the Pontifical Council for Justice and Peace, arrived for a week-long mission there on Tuesday. He'll meet with church and government leaders. And another top Vatican prelate is signaling his support for granting remarried divorcees the sacraments. Cardinal Reinhard Marx, Archbishop of Munich, and a member of Pope Francis's Super 8 Council of Cardinals, said that such a change was practicable and that the withholding of communion from the divorced and civilly remarried could soon be overturned. He told a German daily that a penitential period could be part of the process before such Catholics could again receive the sacrament. The comments mirror those of Cardinal Walter Casper in an address he delivered to the Consistory of Cardinals in Rome this past month. More about all of this when Cardinal Raymond Burke joins us in our next segment. And it appears Pope Emeritus Benedict has been doing more than praying and playing piano in his retirement. In an interview with German television, Archbishop Georg Ganswein, Benedict's personal secretary and current head of the papal household, revealed that the Pope Emeritus wrote a 4-page critique of one of Pope Francis's controversial interviews. That was the Jesuit interview published last September, where the Pope lamented the Church's obsession with small-minded rules. Archbishop Ganswein would offer no details of the critique other than to say that it was done at the request of Francis and that it was interesting. I'll bet. The revelation is further evidence of what appears to be an unprecedented collaboration between the two popes. According to reports, they stay in touch by phone, in person, and often send notes back and forth via Archbishop Ganswein. And Bishop Joseph Fan Liang of Shanghai, a longtime leader of China's underground Catholic Church, died on Sunday at the age of 95. He had spent more than 30 years in prisons and labor camps beginning in 1955. That was just 4 years after he was ordained a priest and 6 years after the Communist Party took control of China. Blessed Pope John Paul II secretly ordained him a bishop in 1985. The Chinese government did not recognize the appointment, and the man spent most of his past 2 decades under house arrest. According to the Cardinal Kung Foundation, Bishop Fan had been running a fever for several days before dying at his home. May he rest in peace. And back here in the United States, the Catholic League has launched a boycott against Guinness beer in response to its parent companies pulling sponsorship of the New York City St. Patrick's Day Parade. In a statement, the Irish brewery claims that organizers of the world's largest St. Patrick's Day celebration have a policy of exclusion with regard to those who identify themselves as gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender. Not so, says Bill Donahue of the Catholic League, who recently addressed the point.
People are factually incorrect. This is not a matter of opinion. Gays have never been barred in over 200 years from marching in the St. Patrick's Day Parade. I have gone on the radio and personally invited homosexuals to march with the Catholic League, provided you be like everybody else, which seems to be a hard thing to do these days, and that is just simply blend in.
In calling for the boycott of Guinness, Donahue said there's a price to be paid for anti-Catholic bigotry, and that is exactly what's driving Guinness to act. Guinness wants to punish Catholics for holding a traditional moral value, and now they must suffer the consequences. End quote. And finally, Gladiator did make a triumphant return to Rome after all. Russell Crowe, star of Paramount Pictures' big-budget release Noah, was among the movie's studio contingent that met Pope Francis on Wednesday. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Crowe and company had a brief meet and greet prior to the Holy Father's weekly general audience, of which Crowe had a front row seat. Throughout the week, reports surfaced that the Vatican had scuttled a papal meeting with the Noah crew. As Crowe left the Eternal City, he tweeted, "Ciao Roma, my love for your eternal light just grows deeper. Thank you, Holy Father, for the blessing." Ciao Roma and buongiorno world over. You won't want to miss next week's World Over as we sit down with Russell Crowe to talk about Noah and much more.